Welcome to the Corporate Venturing Insider Series, where I interview top practitioners in the CVC world and learn with you the best practices and golden nuggets that they have accumulated over their career. In this episode, we will be learning from Amy Burr, president of JetBlue Ventures. Amy, could you take a few minutes to share your story and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been an interesting journey and something that maybe wasn't expected for me through my career. I've actually been in the airline industry for the last 20 plus years. I won't tell you exactly how long. I've just been an operational person within airlines, mainly on the commercial side. So I did a lot of e-commerce, a lot of strategy, a lot of distribution and revenue products and stuff like that. But I've worked for several airlines over the course of time. And the way I actually ended up here, I was a founder at Virgin America, which was a great airline that was purchased by Alaska Airlines. Between 2016 and 2018, I left after leading the integration on behalf of Virgin America. And I was looking for what my next role might be. And the really nice thing about working for Virgin America was I worked for a startup. I started there before we were actually an airline. We were being incubated by Virgin USA. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to build a company from scratch. After I was done with that role, I found this role with JetBlue Ventures back in 2018, and it was the managing director of operations. And it just felt like it fit my background and my kind of interest and my experience with Virgin America, having worked for a startup, having understood how to integrate and really bring in emerging tech and change the way you think about strategy and the way you do your business because of startups and the different things that are different options that are out there. And so I reached out to Bonnie Simi and the team and joined back in 2018 and really felt like it fit for me very well. Now, that being said, I was definitely not a venture capitalist. I'd never worked in the field. I barely even understood what we did. Like, what's the deal? What's the Series A? Like, just starting from scratch in venture capital. And I spent 3 years learning what it meant to be a venture capitalist and what it meant to do deals and invest. And JetBlue Ventures is a really special place with a really nice mission that fits just the way I think about business and in general. And so I really learned how to dive in on venture capital and be a good CVC player. And so when Bonnie left JetBlue Ventures and I was asked to take the role of president, which fit really well for me. So that's my journey into venture. And I would say I was definitely a complete and total beginner in this space, which makes it interesting now. I definitely know enough to be completely dangerous and also know enough to have really skilled people around me.
Very nice. Thank you, Amy. I like the way you start with your journey as a co-founder of a startup. It's actually quite an amazing brand. Now, we double click on all the engagements between JetBlue Ventures and the startups and your portfolio companies. But I want to double click on the operations part, which is how much of what you had experienced driving operations was the same as you joined JetBlue Ventures and how much was not the same.
Okay, so first of all, our title of operations, our operations team, the work that they actually do is around innovation, first and foremost. So it is a lot of work around figuring out what the problems that we're actually trying to solve at JetBlue or other travel providers, and actually figuring out a way for startups to engage with them and figuring out if that's going to be a solution. We call it operations. It's really innovation work. The other big piece of the puzzle that this team works on, there's actually 3 buckets. It's innovation work. It's partnership. Every partnership that we have, it might be with other travel providers. It might be with a group like GCV or other partnerships we have within the industry. And then the third and really critical piece for our startups is our platform. So we actually have a formal platform of portfolio success that we actually help them grow and become a big company and be successful and all of those things. We actually do spend quite a bit of time on that, and the operations team leads that for us. So those are the 3 buckets that this team works on. And that's how I grew into this industry, working on innovation work, which was obviously something I'd been doing for a long time, helping portfolio companies succeed, which is something that feels very natural for me, and then building really strong partnerships. So that's been really great. This is a very different role than roles I've previously had at airlines. The nice thing about this role, I have to admit, my secret is that we don't have operational responsibility for the airline at all. Like, we have no operational responsibility. We are a separate group. We're actually an LLC with a separate charter, a wholly owned subsidiary, of course, of JetBlue. And we're here to really benefit them in so many ways. But we are separated from the mothership, so to speak, and we do not have operational responsibility, which is the first time in 20 plus years that I've not had an operational like an operationally responsible role within the airline. And I have to say it's nice. I'm enjoying the work that I do, and I'm enjoying the innovation focus that we have. It's tricky. The travel industry is really complicated in lots of ways, as many of because you're a traveler and as everybody can probably imagine. And so it's hard to really maintain your innovation focus when you're actually embedded in the airline as an operations person. Even on the commercial side, I was responsible for e-commerce. I was responsible for all of how we sold our tickets, our contact center at one point. Anything that happened immediately becomes your number one priority at that moment. And it doesn't matter if you were trying and hoping to have some innovation work on the side, it just falls by the wayside. So I think it's a really great way that JetBlue has set this up in that we are very focused on innovation, but we're not distracted all the time, which is amazing. That's really the biggest difference between this type of a role versus actually being an operator within your industry is that this role is really just focused more on the innovation side and less responsible for the day to day.
Very nice. So you mentioned three pillars. The one we start with innovation because you started with innovation. That probably also means you spend a lot of time with JetBlue and other travel partners to really understand what are the innovations needed, the pain points, what they wish would be improved. Which of that, how much time do you spend on that front, understanding this requirement coming in?
Yeah, that's a big piece of what my team does. And what I did when I first started, that was my primary role. We spent a lot of time with the internal business units within JetBlue and JetBlue Travel Products and other partners within the industry, just talking about long-term strategy and how they want to change the way they do business. Also talking significantly about pain points and how emerging tech and how these startups can help them solve really painful parts of their job that don't need to be that way, because the downside to the travel industry is this very old legacy tech and old legacy like processes and policies and the way you do business, and it's very regulated and all of those things. So where we can, it's amazing to take a next generation thinker, a startup with the next generation of technology, and actually help them just do their job in a better way. So we spend so much time with our business units just talking about what the opportunities are, where they would like to see things change. And then we spend a lot of time actually doing proof of concepts. And they may be proof of concepts with startups that we don't invest in. That actually doesn't matter. If it solves a problem, if it's a start in the startup world and it solves a problem, we bring it to JetBlue and we help them trial it to see if it's going to actually be the solution they're looking for. So much of our work is that. And we have probably half of the team is actually dedicated to that type of work.
I want to ask more about the proof of concept because when you want to do the proof of concept, it comes from a pain point that you heard from your groups, but you still need to find a startup that would be part of this proof of concept. But you want to make sure it's valuable, not just for JetBlue, but also startups. So how do you ensure that the expectations are set correctly and that there is value at the end of the proof of concept on both sides?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So part of it for the startup, this is one of the ways they could actually become a business partner with JetBlue. To be able to prove that the work that they do is actually going to move the needle. And actually, it helps them build the business case. JetBlue, of course, like any big corporate body, has got like all of these policies and procedures in place where you got to build your business case in order to get the new business vendor and all of those types of things. So it helps drive that process. It helps JetBlue see the benefit of working with the startup. And I think that's a real win for the startup if they're willing to. So it's a little bit of you've got to put in work in order to maybe entice JetBlue to be somebody you're actually a business partner with. A lot of it, and this is actually true fairly often, is that some of it's around us helping them figure out how their products can work for the industry. So even if they don't wind up with a business relationship with JetBlue, it's super valuable for some of these startups to think about, to actually just see in action how their process or their product or their system or whatever it might be is actually going to integrate within an airline. And so a lot of it is around that knowledge that they gain during that proof of concept. And so that's, I think, another win for the startup. But obviously, they want the business with JetBlue. And we definitely try to remind them that this is one way to earn that business. And they do have to earn the business, and that's the tricky part. But I do try to set expectations. A introduction to somebody at JetBlue or even a proof of concept does not mean that it's going to end up the way you want it to. Let's all get what we can from the process. And we set up the deliverables and the milestones and the markers and the things we're measuring to make sure that even if it doesn't wind up being a business relationship at the end, it's still valuable for the startup.
Very nice. And would you say that a good proof of concept is more likely to lead to an investment by JetBlue Ventures? Or it still requires JetBlue itself to want to engage? Or sometimes you invest before the proof of concept?
So we really don't tie those things together. It is great when we make an investment in something that JetBlue uses. Amazing. That's like the perfect scenario, that it's something that JetBlue really wants to use and it's going to be super valuable. And we also make an investment. That's a wonderful scenario. It's not always the case, and it's not necessarily our goal either. We do a lot of proof of concepts with companies that are things that we won't invest in. They're not within our investment thesis. They don't fit within our themes. We invest around 5 specific themes, anything within travel tech, but within 5 specific themes. And then we have financial goals for the investments that we make. And so sometimes it's a startup that's really valuable to JetBlue, and that's amazing, but it's not something we're going to invest in. A lot of times we invest in things that are really great companies that we think are going to be the right player in their space, that it's going to be a good grow and be very valuable to many travel providers and potentially have a really nice financial return for us, but isn't ready for JetBlue, or JetBlue is not ready for them, or it's just not quite in the strategy for JetBlue for right now. We think about it as we're looking for investments that are good for the industry. And a lot of our sustainability investments right now are really about industry improvement and about meeting industry goals around net carbon zero goals and decarbonization. And a lot of those things are not things that JetBlue has in their roadmap, at least at this time. Are they things that could come later? Maybe, and that would be amazing. But it's still about making the industry move towards a really common goal that we all have. So like we've invested in hydrogen or electrification or a bunch of things like that, that are maybe good for JetBlue someday and maybe not. And so we're really clear with our startups that we are investing in them because we believe in them. We believe they're right for the industry. We believe that they're going to move the needle in various ways, but that doesn't mean that JetBlue is going to use them.
Very nice. It's a nice golden nugget, which is you will be able to introduce and facilitate proof of concept with JetBlue, even if you don't plan to. But at the same time, you may decide to invest, even though there may not be no proof of concept with JetBlue.
Yeah. And in a perfect world, it all comes together and it's an amazing company that is a great investment for us and a great business partner, but it's not always the case. And that's okay.
Very, very nice. Earlier, you said you were a total beginner when it comes to corporate venturing. Now you're the president, the head of the CVC. So can you maybe share with the audience, some of the audience are thinking about moving into corporate venturing. They probably think, I know nothing about corporate venturing. How do you learn? How do you pick up all the information quickly so that you can then make the right decisions?
A couple thoughts. Number one, you can always learn about this industry. First of all, there's a ton of really amazing books. Second of all, it's all about who you know and who you talk to. I know a lot of folks in this industry now, and I talk to them about what they think are good deals and bad deals and all of those types of things. I believe very strongly that I should have people in our firm who are very focused on this and who have their whole career has been about venture funding. And so we have a really strong investment team, and that's important. I think if you're taking over or you're building a CVC for within your organization and you're not a venture investor by trade, hire somebody who really is, and then listen to them and make sure you learn from them. And we have an amazing lawyer who has been in the venture world for literally her entire career. And I've learned so much from her. She does periodic training sessions on these are the deal terms that are important to us and why. That teaches you so much. I just feel like this is an area that if you want to learn it, it's not that, as long as you're smart, I have an MBA, I understand the financial situation of companies and the industry and things like that. Like I understand investing in general. So you can learn the nuances of actual venture investing. And so I did. I read a lot of books and I talked to a lot of people and worked really closely with our team at the ventures, at our ventures team, and really learned from our lawyer. But I still believe very strongly that it's good to have people around me who this is what they do for a living. And so that we can have real conversations about like, why is this good? Why is this bad? Why should we do this? Why should we not do this? And I know, like I said, I think at the beginning, I know in jets and that to be really dangerous. And then I rely on my team to make sure we make good choices.
Very nice. I want to touch about and separately diversity and inclusion. And as CVCs, we have a duty, but also an opportunity to really drive these topics including with our portfolio companies. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll start with diversity. What do you think is the next step for us to really improve?
It's really interesting. We're spending a lot of time talking about this right now, and have been for the last couple of years. We're in pretty great shape from a firm perspective. And JetBlue has amazing programs and goals and structure around their DE&I program. And so we get to use kind of that structure as well. And our team is always pretty diverse. And I really am proud of that. Starting from the fact that the two leaders of this organization in 7 years have both been women, which is amazing. First of all, the airline industry is traditionally very poor at having lots of women in executive roles, and venture isn't exactly known for being the most diverse as well. So we think we're doing pretty well there, and we continue to focus on that. And it's all about having a good, diverse hiring pool when you're hiring new candidates, and mentoring either women or people of diverse ethnic backgrounds to be part of this industry. So that's great. I think where we really have some work to do and have some exciting goals around is helping our portfolio companies, not just helping them be more diverse, but for ourselves, sourcing more diverse founders. And so that's a big goal for us this year, is to make sure that we are part of the right groups and attending the right events, and maybe even hosting or co-sponsoring events that focus on diverse founders, startup founders. And so that because the only way that we can change the makeup of our founder group is to actually make sure we're seeing all of the really relevant startups from diverse founder groups. So we're really excited about that and really focused on that. It's tricky, and it's something that, especially, we're not a very broad investor. We invest in travel tech. And as we were talking about goals, and should we put numbers against some of these goals? And is this ethnic group, there are a lot of founders that have travel tech startups. It's a tricky balance, but our goal is just in general to improve the diversity of our founder group. And that is a real big focus for us this year.
There is one thing I really like, which is you're not mandating your portfolio companies. You're actually supporting
Yeah.
them, giving them the context, the access,
Yeah.
so that they can then make the right decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice. Now, of course, diversity is only part of the equation. The other part is inclusion. Can you share maybe some tips that you've seen working really well for inclusion to really kick in?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I'm really great at speaking about this. To me, and this is a tricky thing for me. First of all, just as like a random background information, I grew up as an Army brat. My father's in the US Army, or was until he retired. And we lived all over, but always within an Army structure. And let me tell you, there's nothing more diverse and inclusive than something like an Army, like a military group. All different backgrounds, all different thoughts and religions and ethnic groups. Like, I grew up with that being normal. And that was like, that's just the way it was. I didn't think that was a thing that had to happen. It just always was that way. And it's hard for me to pinpoint ways to improve inclusion, because I'm like, I don't understand why this isn't just a thing. So I'm working really closely with our really amazing team at JetBlue to make sure we're doing all the right things that we should be. And so I'm not sure I have any really great tips, except for that that's just normal for me. So I just feel like that's just part of our DNA, maybe, I hope.
Very nice to hear. Maybe you could talk about the decision making inside JetBlue Ventures then. How do you make sure that everyone has an opportunity to learn, to contribute ideas, and the ideas are heard and listened to?
Sure. We're a really tight knit group, and everybody attends. We have a team meeting every week. Everybody attends the deal flow meeting. We all talk about every single startup that we are interested in. Of course, the investment team are responsible for generating a lot of those leads and bringing them forward, but we all talk about it. And that means that we have lots of really great opinions or really great thoughts about whether or not they're right startups or not right startups, or which directions we should be looking in, and all of those kinds of things. So I think our team spends a lot of time together talking about what our direction should be. Like, I have a strategy offsite every year, and like, we all set the strategy together. Does not matter what part of the organization you're a part of or what level you are, we're talking about this together. And I actually did have somebody on my team say to me recently, this is not really all that normal that everybody in the organization gets to set the strategy. Now, we're not a big team, so I'm like, why wouldn't we all? Everybody's got great ideas. Like, why wouldn't we take advantage of that? I don't want it to just be me and like my two MDs and a couple managers thinking about what's the next steps for us. I want everybody to think about what's the next steps for us and what are the right things for us to focus on and to invest in and all of those things. So our team spends a lot of time together talking about what the right things are for the venture fund. Ultimately, I'm responsible for making sure we make good decisions. That's what JetBlue has hired me for, and that is ultimately the responsibility. But I listen very carefully and closely to all of my crew members to make sure we do make good decisions. And it's not often that I'm like, okay, I'm making a different decision than you guys would. Usually we make decisions we're pretty much all on the same page, but there's lots of good, healthy debate. That's, I think, important. And so the way we think about things is really together as a group, even within the structure of our group, which is part investment, part innovation. And then there's the functions of comms and marketing and us running our business. Even within that, it may be like the operations team work, but the investment team is like really involved, or maybe the investment team's work, but the operations team is really involved. So we work really closely together on all that type of stuff. So that's how we work internally. And then of course, we still have our governance structure with JetBlue and our investment committee and things like that. But they're pretty great about wanting to hear from multiple people on the team. And I think it's a pretty healthy environment for that. But yeah, within the team, we all attend these meetings. I don't care if you're an analyst on the operations team. If you have something to say about a startup that one of the investors brought forward, let's talk about it. Let's go. So we all participate in those conversations.
Okay. You just explained full inclusion.
I know. I think maybe it's really that simple, but
Yep.
yeah.
But also, I think you hinted you're not looking for consensus. You're still going to make decisions, but after you heard everyone, and it may not be what everyone wants, although this would be rare, but it could happen. We're getting to the end of the interview, and I want to ask, especially I'm sure there will be entrepreneurs who are interested in JetBlue Ventures. Could you share what's next for you? What's exciting for the next 2 years that you would want to invest in?
We have 5 investment themes. If there's an entrepreneur who's listening who would like to reach out to us around an opportunity for funding, I recommend they go to our website. You can see the 5 themes. We do need to fall into those themes. So if it's really something that doesn't, it's probably not for us. And we also have a form that you can fill out on our website. If a startup's looking for funding and they think they fit within our themes, they can fill out the form. We maintain this inbox of opportunities and evaluate them all. So that being said, I think things that we're really focused on right now, we'll invest in everything within our themes, but we usually pick 1 or 2 things to really double down on a particular year. And right now we're continuing to focus on sustainability opportunities. We have a good number of investments in that space, and we think we have really great investments in that space. But we do think there's a couple things that we still haven't quite covered in terms of category of tech. And so we're really excited about that. We're also really excited to see how AI is continuing to develop, that especially with the ChatGPT of the world and all those types of things, generative AI. How is that going to change the way we think about data usage within the airline, especially around how you operate in our industry?
I think it would be transformative, right?
And we have so much data in this industry, and we've traditionally been very poor at using it all. We're getting a lot better at that. So I think that some of these next generation AI tools are going to be real game changers in how we, on the customer side and customer experience, and then on the operational side and how we actually operate efficiently. So it will be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Very nice. Amy, thank you for your time. It was really nice. You shared so many of the internal workings and what you're doing, the best practices, something that worked even better than you expected. So thank you so much for all these insights.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was really fun.